Blog Talk Radio.
Are you ready to take a bite out of the competition? Are you looking for ideas to make your business better? Welcome to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet, sponsored by Apple Capital Group. At the core of every successful business, you'll find people making a difference. And with each episode of the Core Business Show, we talk with those people, examine those ideas, and explore the strategies that make them special. Now, the host of the Core Business Show, Tim Jacquet.
Good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Core Business Show. I'm Tim Jacquet, your host. Today I have Dr. Rossi. He's going to, about the recent debate, he's going to analyze that. If you'd like to join the conversation, please go ahead and join us in the chat room. We're going to take a short break real quick. We'll be back in a moment with Dr. Rossi. Thank you all for listening to the Core Business Show. We'll be back in one moment after this break.
You're listening to the Core Business Show, sponsored by Apple Capital Group. Apple Capital Group in Jacksonville, Florida, is a commercial lender that specializes in asset-based loans, equipment leasing and financing, invoice financing, commercial real estate loans, and asset-based financing in the U.S. and Canada. Apple Capital Group is a direct lender that lends on their private equity investment portfolio. 90% of most loans are decided within 2 hours, and vendor funding within 24 hours after documents are completed, with a one-page application. No slow no's, just a quick decision and a fast yes. To get more information about lending from Apple Capital Group, call 866-611-7457. That's 866-611-7457 to speak with one of our loan specialists. Or visit us right now at applecapitalgroup.com.
Well, everyone, thank you for listening. We need to take a short break real quick, and we'll be back in one moment so we can get Dr. Rossi on the line. In the meantime, let's go listen to Corpus Christi Choir in Corpus Christi singing Blue Skies. Okay, that was Corpus Christi Choir. Dr. Rossi, welcome to the program.
I'm glad to be with you.
I guess to begin with, our listeners love personal stories about our guests. Will you mind tell us about yourself?
About myself?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a political psychologist. I comment on characteristics of political figures. We also take a look at the ecological aspects of the different issues of the day, whether it's the issue in New York or the individual mandate, Penn State, things like that. The psychological factors associated with folks and also the issues.
Within your experience, you watched recent debates. These 4 debates were at a different dynamic. One was more laid back, the first one, and then the rest of them just went across the board. Kind of tell us what's the position that you must be in when you're on national television. Everyone's looking at you. You have to score points. Everything from the way you hold yourself, the way you present your topics, the way you even answer a question. Kind of tell us, on the layman's term, what makes this whole picture when you actually analyze a particular person.
Well, that's a really great question. I scored all 4 of the debates for the New York Daily News, and basically what I think is most important is how they project their personality. For example, if you looked at the first debate and you looked at Romney and how he challenged the president and how he came across, and if you look at his facial expressions and how he presented himself, he was quite animated. His facial features seemed quite positive and extremely well prepared. If you look at the last debate, it was a complete turnaround, where if you looked at Romney, he wasn't using his hands very definitively. He looked like he was rather subdued. His facial expressions weren't the same. And if you notice carefully, he was blinking his eyes a great deal because I think he was very tentative on foreign policy. So to answer your question, the way to really handle yourself is to be prepared and present your personality, your own personality traits and characteristics around the issues and around the questions that are asked to you. And in the last 2 debates, I scored for the president because I thought he presented himself very well and characteristics when he answered questions. He gave more concise, clearer, well-defined answers, and he had a mindset that was very, very in tune to connecting words. So those are the factors that I think are most important.
Do you think with Romney, with his last debate, it was actually intentional? Just don't say very much. Keep it low-key, and you're already ahead. Just leave it alone. I'd rather be safe than be sorry for something else to come out.
There's a lot of truth to what you're saying there. I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I think what happens is you saw what happened. I mean, he really didn't look like he was at the same level as the president. The president made a similar mistake in the first debate. The mental set that Romney had going into this probably was, let's not get hurt. I'm not the expert on foreign policy. The president is. I mean, he deals with it every day. So he tried to present himself as best as possible and limit his exposure. You could see it. I mean, you could see that he really was not somebody who was winning that debate. He didn't look as polished, as fluid. His thinking wasn't with the same clarity as the president, and he spoke more in generalities than specifics. And I think it showed. I mean, and it was very different than his performance in the first debate.
And they were just, it was mostly intentional, and probably, and like, mentioned that, you're ahead, already ahead. At this point, it doesn't matter. People are already starting to vote.
Well, I don't know about being ahead of people. I mean, I think there's some truth to that.
Okay.
But the bottom line is, I think both camps know that this is going to be a close election. And I don't think the Romney camp thinks, I mean, I'm just being a psychologist here, trying to perceive what's going on. I don't think the Romney camp or the Obama camp thinks that they're necessarily a solid winner. I think that they both feel they need to pick up a lot of ground and present themselves as best as possible. And, if you look at those battleground states, I think the most important factor is going to be who presents their personality best and connects with voters. And I always say there's the Republican red states, there's the blue states for the Democrats, but the most important state is the state of mind of the voter. And that state of mind is going to be who they feel they're connecting to emotionally, not just likability, the personality character they admire, that they want in a leader. And I think that's going to be the determining factor.
Do you think it's going to be like many analysts believe it's going to happen like in 2000? You had Kerry who carried the popular vote, and you had Bush who carried the most important, the electoral vote. Do you even the numbers are going to maybe be that close? One win one and one win the other? I
think that it will be close. And I've been saying this all along because if you look at the issues and the psychology of the day and the personalities, I think it's going to be a close election, and I think it could go either way. And that's why I also said personality and who connects best, especially over the last 2 weeks, with any possible undecided. I don't know how many there are, but who connects best on their personality and appears to be a person of vision, a person who's consistent, comfortable in their own skin. Those things really matter.
So if we take the particular personalities of both, I mean, you're dealing with two different men, two different backgrounds, two different experiences. How will you summarize both candidates as a whole? You have Governor Romney, you have President Obama. From your experience and your expertise, how will you actually size up differences between the two?
Well, that's a good question, too. I think with Obama, he has a very unusual trait. It's an incredible skill set. He has a trait that I call simplicity of thought, where you've seen this when he debated McCain, you've seen it when he debated Hillary, and the last two debates that came out as well. It was not there in the first one, but I call it simplicity of thought, where with his thinking, he brings it out, and you get it. You get a picture of his thought and his idea. He presents it very well, extremely clear, and he enunciates very well, and he doesn't use a lot of words to make his point. He gets to it and with a lot of clarity, and that's kind of personifies his personality, and that's why he won the presidency. That's why he beat back Hillary, in my view, is his overwhelming personality traits and characteristics. Now, with Romney, if you remember, he finished third in 2008. He finished behind Huckabee and behind McCain, and I think his personality has not been up to either a Huckabee or a McCain, quite frankly, and I think his personality was highly qualified for the first debate. And after the first debate, I think he presented himself as someone who was more confident, had a lot of good talking points from his perspective, and he seemed like he was more acceptable to the first debate. But I still see him as somebody who, when I talk about a winning personality, and I'm thinking about a Ray here on the Republican side, or I'm talking about a Tom Kean Sr., who's chairman of the 9/11 Commission, two-term governor in New Jersey. These guys, as Republicans, are consistent with being themselves. They're very good listeners. They don't necessarily have to be scripted. And I don't see Romney falling into that category where he presents his personality as well as some of the really top Republicans of the past. And I think he does come across as rather robotic at times. So that's an issue. And he's working on it, I'm sure. But he's trying hard on the stump now after the debates. But I see a difference between the two candidates and how well they project themselves.
Well, have you seen any growth he's been running for president for 12 years now. Have you seen any growth in him? It's awesome to run for 12 years and you finally make it there. But from the very beginning, if you watched him 10 years ago to today's date, have you seen any great improvements in his personality?
Well, even from 2008, I think that he's more fluid.
Okay.
I mean, I think that what he does is he presents himself now as somebody who's very well prepared, whether he's on the stump or in a debate. He has his talking points that he goes to in a more fluid manner. He's a little bit more comfortable doing that. However, I still don't see him as really projecting a certain personality type with who he is. For example, if I was using him, I would from the beginning, be a businessman. Look at a guy like Michael Bloom. He doesn't have a great personality, but people like him and they certainly respect him. And he's a billionaire. He's not just worth a couple $100 million. He's a billionaire. Nobody holds that against him. Mm-hmm. And he comes across as kind of a business guy with business savvy. He says what he's very consistent. He does not flip-flop. And I think Romney has some issues with the flip-flopping and the changes in his positions. And I don't know how that's going to affect him in the long run here, but it could at the end of the day be a determining factor.
So what was the magic behind one of the candidates last year? I mean, we forgot his name again. Is Kane last year. And he stood out as being a practical businessman. And he was up and then he was down. But what was the magic behind him that people got attracted to last year? And because still people are not sold on Romney. It's like you either have this or that. I know his faith is questioning some people and have a somewhat issue with that. The psychology of his candidacy and some magic of some of the people who rose to the occasion last year went up and down on the polls. What's the difference between the two? Is that personal appeal people look for?
I think so, actually. I really feel that it's not just likability. Make sure we know that.
Okay.
But it's really the personal appeal. I like what you said there. Personal appeal to me means the personality to project. What kind of characteristics are a winning personality? And people look to see someone, and there's really 4 characteristics that I have in my article on a winning personality. One is that they're comfortable being themselves. Are they consistent over time? Do they say the same thing? 3, they never discard people. They never dismiss anybody. Even if they disagree with some folks, they always seem to be engaged. And then finally, their thought process is such, they always project out to be a good listener. If you met this guy on the street, would he listen to you? Reagan. You met Reagan, he'd talk to you. If you met Tom Kaine Sr., who doesn't have a great personality, he's a Republican, he'd sit and talk to you, and he'd listen. Does Romney meet those 4 criteria? And I think he has some challenges there.
Wow. You think it's a love-or-hate relationship with the Republican Party here? It looks like he has the best chance of winning than all the other candidates. I mean, we're not happy with him, but this is all we got, so we just go ahead and support him.
Well, I think there's been I used the word love-hate. I think that's kind of going down the right road. I don't know if I'd say exactly those terms, but the people on the far right of the Republican Party have their own views, and they're very rigid views in many respects. They're very, very one-sided, and he has to contend with those folks. And then he also has to deal with the moderates in the Republican Party. And that's a challenge for him. It is. And it's hard. It would be hard for anyone, I think, in the Republican Party right now to appease all of the folks just in the party, let alone, the rest of the country, any Democrats or independents. So I think that you're onto something there. I think it's a real challenge for him to try to be the person for the Republican Party as a whole.
What do you think things will get with either candidate if either wins? So if Romney wins, of course they're facing some huge and tough issues. Regardless, whatever happens, they're going to be faced with something that a lot of people really don't want to deal with. So either party has to deal with that. What do you think it's going to look like, Romney administration or another Obama administration, in your opinion?
Well, I think that what you would see with the Romney administration, somebody who will probably move to the center, and might have some hostilities from the people on the right, but he would have to deal with everybody, and he probably would move to the center like he did in the first debate. I think with the Obama team, if they want to try to come up with some way to push for compromises on certain issues and try to make some gains in the last 4 years that he could not get to in first. So I see, a lot of gamesmanship, a lot of psychology going forward, no matter who wins here.
What is the mindset of a person who ever wants to run for office? I mean, for the president of the United States. I mean, it's stressful. Your life is at risk forever. What is the mindset of that, having that particular power in the person that they would actually take on this responsibility in office?
Well, that's a really fine question. I think, you have to be a little bit egocentric, that's for sure. I think you have to be a person who really believes that you can make a difference. It's someone who does have a quest for power and authority, certain personality traits that make you feel that you can be so effective to affect the nation and the world. You have to have a pretty big ego and a mindset that there's certain goals that you have that are very, very large goals. And those kinds of folks are few and far between in terms of who really wants and has the temperament to do that.
In either case, I guess if you in office, you win, but it's just the psychology of having every decision that you make affects everyone, life or death, and that's pretty much in your hands. From the soldiers that are risking their lives to orders, across the board. I mean, it has to be a certain makeup of a person who wants to take on the responsibility for something like that.
Well, I think people, again, who feel that overall they can affect change, they can be a leader. People really like the sense that they can be a leader. And also, you have to remember that these are folks who really like a challenge. Obviously, there can't be anything more challenging than being president. And if you like a challenge, and if you like to really see what you can do under pressure, this is the top,
Well, last question before you make your closing statements. Hillary Clinton, of course, this is going to be her last term as Secretary of State. Do you think she'll run in the future?
Well, I think that it's really still up in the air for her. And I'll tell you why I say that. I think she's exhausted. I think she decided that she was going to give this role as Secretary of State her very, very best effort. I think you saw that. I think her poll is astonishingly high. I mean, it's incredible how well she is viewed by most everyone. And not only in the United States, but around the world. And I think it's probably because she really very sincere in her effort to do this job and did it, extraordinarily well. Lisa Rice did a good job also before her. So did Colin Powell. But the problem that I think she has is whether or not she feels she can have enough energy and enough health to really run. And I have a feeling, if I was going to bet, it would lean in the direction that after she took 6 months or a year off, she would need to actually run. That's I would give a little edge and favor her possibly saying yes, then no.
And it's going to matter. It depends on who. Of course, if we have another Democrat in office, it's going to affect our decision as well.
Sure. Yeah, that's a fact.
It was a Republican. Definitely, I can see she's running. But I guess the biggest thing is it's going to happen after the election as well. If it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, if Obama wins, and things are going reasonably well, I mean, they're not going to be perfect, that's for sure, no matter who wins, then there would be like an open seat there for a Democrat to run, because Obama wouldn't run again, and she'd have to make a decision as to whether she wanted to do that. And the other thing is that from a psychological and emotional standpoint, more than political, she could probably run and not have a primary challenge. Yeah, I think that with her husband and with the Democratic Party, they would probably all coalesce behind her.
Absolutely.
So that would probably help her thinking, her mind, well, because if she has to go through another primary season like she did against Obama, I don't know if she really could run. So there's a lot of factors that me lean saying that she might just go.
Okay. Any last comments that you'd like to leave us with?
Well, just actually, once again, I say that at the end of the day, the most important factor, I know issues are important, but the most important fact, how a candidate presents their personality, wraps their personality in issues. I don't mean likability. I mean those traits that I mentioned before, especially being comfortable in your own skin and consistent over time, being a good listener, Those things are really important because when the voter goes into the booth, they're going to be thinking about who they connect with, not what happened in Benghazi, Libya.
Okay. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it, Dr. Oski, you joining the program. It was great. I mean, you got a lot of insight. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Enjoy speaking with you.
Thank you for listening to the Core. Tim Jacquet, your host. Everybody, have a great day. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet. For more information about equipment financing and asset-based loans, visit our website, applecapitalgroup.com. That's applecapitalgroup.com. Or call us at 866-611-7457. We hope you'll join us for our next episode. And remember, you can always get to the core via iTunes. You'll find all our previous episodes there. And thanks again for listening to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet.